The moment I heard his words, I felt something inside me shatter like thin winter ice. That's how 68-year-old Eleanor Hayes, from a quiet village in Vermont, described the day her life flipped upside down. For nearly 42 years, Eleanor and her husband, Robert, had lived together in their white farmhouse on Maple Hollow Road. It was an old house with slanted floors, yellowed wallpaper, and the familiar creak of stairs that had carried the footsteps of their three grown children. Eleanor loved that house. Robert tolerated it. They were different people. She was gentle, patient, nurturing, and creative. Robert was sharp, practical, and often cold, even in small moments. But Eleanor never imagined, after a lifetime of loyalty, raising children, supporting him through unemployment, illnesses, and financial hardships, that he would stand in the same living room they built together and say, "I'm leaving. I met someone. She's 32. Her breath froze. The world spun. The man she grew old with wanted to start over with someone young enough to be his daughter? At first, she thought it was a cruel joke, but his packed suitcases proved otherwise. "What about our home?" she whispered, unable to process the truth. "That old place," he scoffed. "It's too much work, too old, too depressing." Then he added the words that burned her memory forever. "Besides, you always held me back." He walked out. Just like that. The next morning, neighbors whispered. Her daughter cried over the phone, her sons were furious, but Eleanor felt strangely empty. An emptiness so deep that it almost turned into a quiet determination. Because for the first time in 42 years, she was alone. And free. She stared at the peeling paint on the walls, the dusty corners, the broken cabinet hinges. This was the house she had sacrificed everything for. And now, she whispered to herself, "If he doesn't want this home, I'll make it something he never deserved." Renovating a 120-year-old Vermont farmhouse is not easy, especially not for a 68-year-old woman who had never picked up more than a paintbrush. But Eleanor was fueled by something stronger than energy: heartbreak, betrayal, and a spark of rediscovered self-worth. The first thing she did was walk into the master bedroom, the one she and Robert shared for more than 4 decades. She stared at the bed, the dresser he chose, the wall color he insisted on. Everything screamed his presence. She wanted it gone. So, she grabbed a hammer. Her hands trembled at first, but the moment she slammed the hammer into his old dresser, something powerful awakened inside her. She struck again, harder, and again. Wood cracked, dust flew, and with every strike, she fell lighter. "Goodbye, Robert," she muttered as she swung the hammer the final time. Over the next few days, she posted online, "Widow, well, almost, renovating my old Vermont farmhouse. Need help learning tools." What she didn't expect was the flood of responses. Young carpenters, retired builders, college students home for break, even a single mother who specialized in interior painting, all offered to help. Some for pay, some for free, some just because you sound brave. Soon, Eleanor had a small community at her doorstep. Each morning, she served homemade cookies and hot coffee. In return, they taught her how to sand floors, remove wallpaper, patch drywall, use power tools safely, install light fixtures, repaint wooden cabinets. Her hands blistered, her back ached, but she laughed more in those weeks than she had in years. One afternoon, as she sanded the hallway floorboards, a neighbor named Jonah, an older handyman, told her, "Your house has good bones, Ellie. It just needed someone who cared." She smiled softly. And so did I. The renovation became more than a project. It became Eleanor's rebirth. The kitchen. She removed the old oak cabinets and painted new ones a warm sage green. She added copper handles, a white farmhouse sink, and open shelves lined with ceramic dishes she found at thrift stores. The kitchen became bright, inviting, and full of life, just like she always wanted. The living room. She tore down the faded floral wallpaper and replaced it with a soft cream paint. She added a stone fireplace mantel, cozy rugs, and framed family photos she found boxed in the attic. For years, Robert had complained, "We don't need more things on the walls." Now, the walls were full of love, memories, and stories. The bedroom. This was her proudest achievement. She transformed the old master bedroom into a peaceful sanctuary with lavender walls, new curtains, a soft queen-size bed, and warm lights. She crocheted her own blanket, something she had abandoned years ago. She even added a reading nook near the window overlooking the maple trees. She used to sit under with her children. "This room is mine," she whispered the night she first slept there, "and it finally feels like home." The garden. She planted sunflowers, wild roses, lavender, and herbs. She built a small stone path. She installed fairy lights around the maple tree she used to sit under with her children. Every flower felt like reclaiming a piece of her soul. People began to stop by just to admire the transformation. Students came to interview her for school projects. A local newspaper featured her story. 68-year-old Vermont woman renovates entire home after husband leaves her. Eleanor began receiving letters from women across the state, saying her courage inspired them. Little did she know, the person she least expected would soon return. It happened on a chilly autumn afternoon. Leaves were falling, the sun was low, and Eleanor was sweeping her new porch. A familiar voice called out, "Ellie?" She froze. Robert stood at the gate, older, heavier, and strangely smaller than she remembered. His new relationship, she later learned, had collapsed after only 3 months. He looked around the beautifully renovated property and blinked in disbelief. What happened here?" His voice trembled. "I renovated," she replied calmly. He stepped closer, trying to smile like nothing had happened. "You've done an amazing job, really. I was thinking maybe I could come back, just for a while, until I figured things out." Eleanor studied him carefully. The man who once told her she wasn't enough. The man who called their home too old, too depressing. The man who replaced 42 years of marriage with a 32-year-old stranger. She opened the door and let him walk through the newly painted hallway. His eyes widened at every room. "You did all this without me?" he whispered. She nodded. "I had to learn how to live without you." He sighed heavily. "Well, maybe it's time we put everything behind us. I can move in again. We can fix things." Eleanor smiled gently. "Robert, I didn't renovate this house for you." He frowned. "What do you mean?" She walked him to the front door. "I renovated it to reclaim my life, to find joy again, to build something beautiful after you destroyed so much. This home doesn't need you, and neither do I." Robert's face fell. He looked stunned, like a man who suddenly realized he had thrown away something irreplaceable. "Ellie? Please." "No," she said softly but firmly. "You left because you wanted younger. I'm older now, and I've grown stronger. Goodbye, Robert." She closed the door, and for the first time in her life, she felt absolutely free. Months passed. Eleanor's renovated farmhouse became a local treasure. People called it the Maple Hollow Miracle House, the Vermont transformation story, the home that found its heart again. She started a small YouTube channel showing how she renovated rooms on a tight budget. Her videos quickly gained thousands of subscribers, especially older women who admired her courage and resilience. She taught them how to repaint old furniture, repurpose thrifted items, and create cozy rooms filled with personality. She shared tips, stories, and laughter. And every episode ended with her signature line: "You can rebuild anything, even a broken heart." One spring morning, as she sat on her porch with a cup of herbal tea, neighbors walking by waved at her. Children rode their bikes down the street. Birds sang in her garden. She smiled. Her home wasn't just renovated, it was reborn, just like she was. Eleanor often thought about Robert, not with sadness, but gratitude. If he hadn't left, she would still be living in a dim, loveless, crumbling house and in a dim, loveless, crumbling marriage. Instead, she created beauty, strength, independence, and community. Her true story from Vermont wasn't about heartbreak after all. It was about rebirth. It was about a woman discovering that the best chapters of life don't always happen in youth. Sometimes they begin at 68 with a hammer in hand.